and we're talking this morning about venture capital, about Section 12J tax allowances and investments and the like. Maulana, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hi, Uncle Inayat.
Alhamdulillah, very well. How are you keeping, Maulana?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Right.
Congratulations to you and Salam Media as well as the listeners for giving us the opportunity this morning.
No problem. Maulana, let's talk about venture capital and let's just try and get a better understanding as to what venture capital is all about to begin with before we get to talking about tax and Section 12J and these allowances that, obviously that are allowed in terms of SARS and its regulations.
Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Venture capital is a form of private equity that finances small businesses which have long-term growth potential. Now, small businesses are defined as businesses with an asset base of 50 million rand or lower. The investors in venture capital generally come from people who are well off financially. It would come from investment banks and any other financial institution. Private equity is an alternative investment class, and it consists of capital that is not listed on a public exchange, such as the Johannesburg Securities Exchange.
Gee, Maulana, now obviously that's quite interesting because, we are talking about financing small businesses. Now, looking at Section 12J, because this obviously is a special tax deduction, and if you could just tell us more about what Section 12J is all about.
So Section 12J refers to a special tax deduction that is allowed in terms of the Income Tax Act. And Section 12 is a tax deduction which is granted on 100% of the investment the investor. So 100% of the investment made by the investor is granted as a tax deduction if it was invested in a Section 12J approved company. And this deduction is granted to the investor in the tax year of investment. This 100% tax allowance reverts to an upfront cash subsidy to the investor ranging from 18 to 45% of the investment. That is, the marginal tax rate paid by the taxpayer will determine where the investor benefits within the 18 to 45% range.
Right. This is quite interesting, Maulana. And just in terms of qualification, who would qualify for a Section 12J tax allowance?
So all taxpayers in South Africa, ranging from individuals to companies and corporations and trusts, can also benefit from the Section 12J allowance. So in summary, all taxpayers registered in South Africa can take advantage of the tax allowance.
Maulana, now, you've been talking about a Section 12J company and looking at all of venture capital and how this company would actually fit in as a registered Section 12J company.
So at Olive VCC, we are a public audited company recognized as an authorized financial service provider with the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, the FSCA. Olive VCC is also registered as a Section 12J company with SARS, and it has an approved VCC status. We have both executive directors as well as independent directors. What this does is it gives our investor protection with oversight by the FSCA. It gives the investor good governance, and there is accountability as Olive VCC is a public audited company. The tax benefit from Section 12J allows us to target an after-tax return of 17% per annum. Yes, Uncle Inayat, you heard correct. 17%
yes.
per annum. That is achieved by a combination of earning 8 to 9% per annum from the underlying investment performance. Over and above the investment return, there is an upfront tax savings or refund which adds as much as 8% per annum to the investment performance. Therefore, 9% comes 9% from the investment, and 8% would come from the tax allowance, which helps us achieve the target of 17% per annum over 5 years. It's also very important to recognize that the tax benefit is received upfront, and therefore up to 45% of the investment becomes risk-free as it is received upfront.
Mm. This is very, very interesting. I mean, 17% in today's day and age, and really, obviously, it's quite phenomenal. Now, just as far as it's all about investments and it's all about investment philosophy, Molana, what would all of VCC's investment philosophy be?
At all of BCC, our tagline is diversified, dynamic, and ethical, targeting a 17% per annum return. So we are firm believers in capital protection, which is achieved by maintaining a diversified portfolio. And we have identified renewable energy investments, filling stations, cattle feedlot, student accommodation, hotels, and any other opportunistic investments that meet our investment criteria of delivering a return of 17% per annum after taxes on an acceptable risk basis. We have a dynamic, experienced team consisting of qualified, experienced persons combined with young talent. We act fast and we look at opportunities to enhance returns. And our ethical objectives are fulfilled with a Sharia focus to serve our investor and our customer. Listeners need to remember that this is a 5-year investment for tax purposes, whereafter we have exit strategies, including selling the assets and returning capital to investors, and possibly a stock exchange listing should our capital base merit it.
Gee, Molana, now, Molana, just for people wanting to invest, how much is the investment and how does an investor make a contact?
So the minimum investment is 105,000 yen, and individuals can invest up to 2.5 million rand, while companies can invest a maximum of 5 million rand. The prospectuses and further details are available on our website. That's www.olivebcc.co.za. Olive, OLIVE, Investors can enter their details on the website and we will make contact with them. The tax benefits for the tax year ending 28th of February 2021 closes on the 28th of February 2021.
Gee, Molana, Jazakallah khairan so much for that. So there are obviously opportunities for people to take care or to take advantage of these Section 12J benefits that are allowed through the Venture Capital Initiative from Olive Venture Capital Company Limited. Molana, Jazakallah so much for that, for your time with us this morning. Allah accept, Allah reward you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah.
They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, yet many children go to school hungry because of poverty. Penny Appeal's Breakfast Pub aim to get a warm, hearty meal to underprivileged children so they can spend the day prospering in their schoolwork. Help feed a needy learner by visiting our website on www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573 to find out how you can donate. Penny Appeal. Small change, big difference.
Osman's Taj Mahal Spice and Rice. For over 80 years, Osman's Taj Mahal have been perfecting the art of the perfect blend of spices, pure, aromatic, and well-seasoned. Spices to tantalize your taste buds. From creative cuisines to gastronomical gourmet goodies, from exotic odors to traditional dishes, Osman's Taj Mahal have remained synonymous with quality spices and condiments. Taj Mahal rice, beans, and lentils. Try our range of chili bite mixes, rose and ilachi syrup, our quick and easy biryani pack, and our traditional range of spice blends. Osman's Taj Mahal. There is no substitute for quality.
From the townships of South Africa, the refugee camps in Syria, or orphanages in Yemen, the eyes of the needy speak volumes with just one glare. We know what it's like to be at ground zero, with food essentials, clothing and blankets fresh water portal trucks, and even on-site navigators. We use every cent to better their tomorrow. Become part of our journey to bring relief to all. Go to www.ashrafulaid.org or call us on 011 809 8181. Ashraful Aid, under the auspices of Maulana Suhail Wadi.
Freedom Stationery supply Marlin and Marlin Kids pens to me and my school friends. They supply just about everything we need to help us get a better education, from books to files to rulers. In fact, any any accessory we need. Freedom Stationery. Education for the nation. What does accessory mean?
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Time is just gone 8:54 a.m. and we continue this morning looking at the AstraZeneca vaccine in South Africa. Now, South Africa has procured 3 million doses of the vaccine, and we know of the vaccine debacle. We joined on the line this morning by Mia Malan, founding editor-in-chief of Becky Sisa. Mia, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, obviously with this whole vaccine debacle, so much is actually being said at this point in time. And one of the key area of focus at this point in time is the expiry date of the vaccine. That is a huge talking point. It's a major talking point. And the key question is, so much money has already been spent on the vaccine. What happens now that we've learned that the vaccine is expired?
So just to clarify, the AstraZeneca vaccines that we have not expired. Their expiration date is for the end of April. So the 1 million doses that we have in the country will expire at the end of April. They are still all valid. How expiration, you may recall that the Deputy Director General of Health, Anban Pillay, said on Sunday night in a briefing that we will either send back and ask for another batch from AstraZeneca, the vaccine, or we will ask to push the expiration date forward. Now, that might sound like a weird statement, pushing the expiration date forward, but it actually is possible. And the reason for that is because the AstraZeneca vaccines, all COVID vaccines, are so new. So normally what happens with vaccines is they generally stable, they generally have an expiry date of 6 months, but there are many vaccines which lasts for longer, for up to 12 months. Now, we cannot establish whether a vaccine can last for longer unless the vaccine has existed for longer. So because these vaccines are so new, we only started to get trial data for the AstraZeneca vaccine in September last year. And our expiration date, that's April, probably means that these vaccines, the batch that we got, was probably manufactured in November last year, 6 months before the expiration date. But each month that goes on, the company runs new laboratory tests to see if the vaccine, a vaccine that was produced 6 months ago, if it would remain stable for a longer period. And we need to do that as the time moves on. So each month, a COVID vaccine company would run a test and see if it remains stable. It would be a similar test to, for instance, if you test what would happen if you don't store it at the right temperature, what happens to the vaccine. So in this case, it is entirely possible that the AstraZeneca vaccine could remain stable for beyond 6 months. So in our case, beyond April. However, there was a press briefing by the health minister yesterday, and he explained that if we were going to use AstraZeneca in our original vaccine rollout strategy, so not the new one that was announced, the original one, we would have used all the vaccines by April. And I assume he said that because we would probably have used all the 1 million vaccines for first doses. You require a second dose 3 months after the first dose, that we would have used the new ones coming in for second doses. But he also said They have now spoken to the Serum Institute in India, where our vaccines were manufactured, and they've asked that should we use these vaccines in the second vaccine rollout. We don't yet know if we will use AstraZeneca vaccines, but should we do that, we will ask if we could exchange the batch. They're already speaking to the Serum Institute, but he gave the assurance that he will not be using vaccines from AstraZeneca at this stage that have an expiry date of April, even though it's possible that it could be pushed forward. We don't know because we haven't seen those data yet.
Yes, obviously there are unknowns, Mia, at this point in time. But I've also read of a report with South Africa saying that they could possibly consider selling the unused AstraZeneca vaccines.
So the health minister yesterday said that he has had many emails from governments from other countries who have asked if they could buy this batch and use it in their own countries. It would obviously be countries where the variant that was identified in South Africa isn't circulating, because that's the whole issue in South Africa, that this vaccine doesn't seem to respond well to the variant and provide good protection. Important to point out, only against mild to moderate COVID do we know that it doesn't provide good protection. We don't yet know what will happen with severe disease. And the reason why we want to know about severe disease is because that's a type of COVID that makes people end up in hospital and makes them die. So we want to prevent that specific form of COVID more actually than we want to prevent mild to moderate COVID, because we want to keep people out of the hospitals and we don't want people to die. It has an impact on the economy, and it obviously has a lot of trauma that goes along with it. But yes, there are other countries that have contacted them. He hasn't made a decision on whether it would be sold, because we have a scientific committee meeting this week who will tell us, will we use the AstraZeneca vaccines in our second rollout? And if we will, it would obviously not make sense to sell it.
Well, obviously, but also I think one important issue is looking at South Africa and where we are. And I'm sure we have got the technology, we've got the knowledge, we've got the expertise to basically develop a local vaccine for local conditions. And this is something that I know that the health minister believes it can be done. It can be done in this country.
We actually don't have the expertise. It's actually a misconception that people have. To be able to develop any kind of vaccine, the technology like you need for that takes literally years to develop. So we have one company in South Africa called BioVac who has done filling and packing of vaccines. They've never developed a vaccine. So that is something that takes a lot more effort than what it sounds like. We do have another company, Aspen, as you may have heard, who will help with COVID vaccines. They won't be manufacturing it. They will just be filling and packing the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So in other words, the vaccine already in its made form will arrive in South Africa, and they will just put it in vials and, in boxes and label it and then ship it to countries.
Yes. Now, obviously, at this point in time, we're talking about AstraZeneca, we're talking about Johnson & Johnson, but we know about vaccines that have been developed and are being used in countries like China, and looking at the Sputnik V vaccine that has been developed in Russia as well. And South Africa being part of BRICS, and we've got this close relationship with countries like China and Russia as well. What are the opportunities there to obtain a vaccine from these countries?
So maybe go back a little bit. I'll get to what are the opportunities from there. Just a bit of background. So our adjusted vaccine rollout strategy will now look different from the first one. And what will be the big difference is that we will phase it in as part of an implementation study. So that is a study that will use products that have already been proven safe to use and effective, and we will roll it on in a way and monitor it to see how well it works on our variant, essentially. And we're very interested to see how it works against preventing severe disease. Now, if we get, at the moment, we know of two vaccines that we will use for this implementation study. It's Johnson & Johnson and it's Pfizer. We're waiting to hear if AstraZeneca will also be part of it. And we will then compare these vaccines to see which ones, how well they compare working on the variant preventing severe disease against each other. The health minister has mentioned twice, 2 or 3 times already, that we are in talks with Russia for the Sputnik vaccine, and we're also in talks with a company in China called Sinopharm for their vaccine. Now, we've got a very, very really good medicine regulatory body in our country who wouldn't allow medicine of any kind to come in if we don't have peer-reviewed data or good data from phase 3 trials. So that is the latest stage in clinical trials, a large clinical trial. Now, the issue up until recently with Russia and China, Sinopharm, was that we've seen data in press releases, but we haven't seen peer-reviewed data, and all the data, haven't been released. That has changed with Russia. They have published peer-reviewed data, which showed good protection, good data, from their vaccine. However, we don't know how it will work on the variant. So we will probably start phasing it in, test it, and do it with relatively small amounts of it. With Sinopharm, we have not seen peer-reviewed data. So we cannot procure Sinopharm yet because our medicine regulator won't approve use of it. If we don't have good data, we're waiting for that data to become available.
Yes. Now, Mia, obviously, we've had some sort of a plan. We've had some sort of a strategy as far as vaccine rollout is concerned. And against the background of what has happened with this vaccine that has come out from India, and now we are talking of certain dynamics that are changing as far as the vaccine rollout is concerned, how is this likely to impact on the plan that we've had? And more so, I think, looking at containing the virus, because this is the longer this takes, obviously, the more complicated the issue will arise in terms of containment.
So as I've mentioned, we will now start slightly slower, than we would have started, because we're going to start with a lower amount of vaccines and use it as part of implementation study. So yesterday, the health minister said that we are likely to get some Johnson & Johnson vaccines into the country, because we don't have any yet, by next week. He's hoping for, and it won't be many vaccines. I see Business Day this morning reported it will be 80,000 of those vaccines. Remember, the big difference between Johnson & Johnson and other vaccines for South Africa is that we have data on Johnson & Johnson that shows us that it is effective against preventing severe disease caused by the variant. It's about 85% effective. We don't have any data like that for another vaccine. We've got Novavax data, for other forms, less severe forms of COVID, but we are very interested at the moment to see severe COVID. So the other difference with Johnson & Johnson for the entire world is that so far from the vaccines that we have data for, this is the only vaccine that requires only one shot, which makes it a lot easier to administer, because it's very hard to go and follow up with everyone who's had a shot to make sure they get their second shot. It always happens that you lose a few people along the way. So with Johnson & Johnson, you don't run that risk. So what's now going to happen when the Johnson & Johnson vaccines arrive, those vaccines will be used as part of the implementation study. And because we do not have approval yet for use of Johnson & Johnson in the country, they will be using it as part of a clinical trial, because it's a lot easier to get approval to use a drug as part of a clinical trial than to get approval for general use. It takes a lot longer to do that. Johnson & Johnson has a rolling application for that, and according to their principal investigator, Glenda Gray, it will take about 3 months for that application to be concluded. So at the moment, we will only be able to use it as part of a research setting, because that's the kind of approval that they will get from SAPRA, our medicine regulator.
Well, Mia, thank you very much for that and for your time with us this morning here on News and Views. We wish you all the best. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Mia Malan joining us this morning, and she is the deputy, in fact, she's the founding editor-in-chief of Bekisisa. Mia Malan with Bekisisa this morning. Very, very interesting discussion. We're going to head for the news. I know we are running late, but we'll be back.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media.
لا تقل لي وحدي أو كيف السبيل.
Humanity sets the agenda.
تصنع المستحيل.
which they said was used for military purposes to target the Yemeni people. The Saudi-led coalition confirmed the attack, which Sana said was carried out in response to the aggression in the country. Nearly 6 years have passed since Saudi Arabia and its allies launched the war on Yemen with the aim of reinstalling the former Riyadh-backed regime of Abdurrahman Mansur Hadi. The military campaign against Yemen has killed 233,000 people, according to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. Taking a look at the temperatures this morning: Durban 22 to 28, Richards Bay 23 to 29, Ulundi 19 to 29, Ladysmith 16 to 31. And Margate is at 22 to 28. Here then Pietermaritzburg is at 17 to 31 and Newcastle is at 16 to 28. For Rhode Island Star News, I'm Tabile Duma.
Rasulullah, Rasulullah, you are the only one, the messenger. And when life is hard, you know it can get hard sometimes. You are the only one I will follow till I die. I keep you sunnah inside my soul. Pray it stays with me till I get old. Though the times will keep on changing, hearts will still be craving peace inside their soul. So I will pray that Allah will keep me on the straight path, holding me close, I'll never stray back, keeping Him deep within my soul. Just wait for me to come home. Rasulullah, Habibullah, you are the way, the light we try to follow. You are the peace we need. Remember that with every hadith I read. You taught us our deeds are all we take with us when we die. I keep you
Salam Media, a global voice for humanity.
Every night in my dreams, I pray that I see you. That is what I ask. Allah. Far across the distance and spaces between us, I want to see your face. Near, far, Rasulullah, I can't wait to be with you.